Good evening, everybody. My name is Tracy Ford, and I am the host as well as the developer of this channel. It is great to see you. Today is Tuesday night. Of course, it's 7 o'clock. So, it's time for the Sundry series. We are going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to many authors, and that is character development. Character development can come from just about anywhere. The characters that you dream up can be from dreams. They can be from people you meet. They can be from people that you already know. And they can be a combination of all of those things. Characters develop over time. You can't just let the reader see all of who this character or these characters are at the very beginning of your work. That's why it's a novel, is you are developing your characters as you go. Now, you already have them developed in your mind, but the reader doesn't quite know them yet. So the reading process is a matter of getting to know your characters. Remember that. Characters have their own personalities. So in order to develop those personalities, what I suggest are 3 different techniques. And you can use whatever techniques that you research and that you're the most comfortable with. But I have found word webs, brainstorming, and outlining to be my biggest helper in developing the characters that I have come up with. Word webs are really good, especially if you're trying to figure out who's who, because there's always a protagonist and an antagonist. There's always the heroine or the hero against the dark forces, so to speak. So you have to figure out who those people are and give them personalities. And by doing that, you can enhance what your readers see. Vary the characters in ethnicity, religious beliefs, sexual preferences, culture. They should be just as diverse as the population of your readers, as the population of your world, of our world. They should be reflective of that. At least that's my opinion. Characters have strengths and weaknesses just like a real person does. So highlight those. Give them a sense of humor. If they're funny, let them be funny. If they're serious or stuck up, let them be serious and stuck up. Let them be wrong. You don't want a character that's always right, because that's boring. There has to be some type of, and that goes into plot development, which is something that we're going to talk about next time. But that goes into the whole general idea of where the plot is going. Because if you have perfect characters, what is the plot going to be about? They're going to have to run into some roadblocks at some point in order for its story to make sense, unless it's like an autobiography. But even then, in my own life, if I was to sit down and write an autobiography, I can tell you there's going to be parts of that autobiography that show me being successful, and parts that are going to show me being unsuccessful. There's going to be parts showing conflict, and there's going to be parts showing resolution. So you have to develop your characters as you would a human being or an everyday person. Even if you are developing sci-fi characters, you can still make them very realistic in their approach, in their mannerisms. Everything about them can be realistic. Look at Star Wars and The Hobbit. Those characters, some of the Star Wars characters are so beyond what you're I mean, it takes an imagination to develop some of the characters in Star Wars and The Hobbit and countless other sci-fi fantasy books. There's no limit to character development, let's put it that way. Character development is like there's no ceiling there. You can make them as ornate as you want to or as simple as you want to. That's the beauty of character development, is you can do whatever you want to with those particular people. The important thing is that you want your readers to fall in love with the characters that you give them. When the character cries, you want your reader to cry. When your character has something great happen to them, you want your reader to be happy for that character. You want, like for example, if you have two characters that are falling in love, you want the reader to root for that. If there's a conflict for your main character, you want your reader to be behind the main character and saying, go, go, go. You know, you want them to cheer on your characters. And then you also want them to look at the evil characters with kind of disdain. Well, the only way that they can do that is for you to develop the character so well that they see the evil in the character, and they can be like, oh, I hope that she just does this, that, or the other. You want that reader to connect with who you've decided to put in your book. Sometimes an easy way to develop a character is to close your eyes and see the story unfold like a movie. I use subject outlining, which helps me develop my plots. I do my character development in my head. The subject plot line and the subject outline helps me develop the characters, but I usually already know who the characters are. Now, what I can tell you is that for example, with writing K-Cons, and I've done this with absolutely every single book that I've written. Yeah, every single book I've written. What I do is I list all the characters. I'm doing this with Time Torn Asunder as well, working with Jamie Ronan, and we do character development together. But I have the name of the character, which sometimes changes a lot. And then from there, I say, okay, what do I want them to look like? How old do I want them to be? What features do I want them to have? Do I want them to be blonde? Do I want them to be brunette? Do they want them to be fair-skinned? Do I want them to have dark skin? Do I want them to be Christian? Do I want them to be Catholic? You create this person on a piece of paper, and then you plug that person into your plot line. And that's how I do it. Now, whether it's right or wrong, I have no idea. I don't think there is a right or wrong way to do it. I think you know what's best for you. Don't expect your characters to be perfect, as I said. You want them to have flaws. You want those flaws to attract your reader, sometimes because you want the reader to empathize with them. You want the person that's reading your book to say, man, I feel so bad for her, or go get him, or you have to have your imagine a cheerleading squad and a character. You want to have your readers be the cheerleading squad for your characters, or the people that says, death to the so-and-so. I mean, you want them to be so involved with your characters that they feel like they know them by the time the book is over. Killing off a character is never easy. I have experienced this. The fine line doesn't, yeah, wait a minute. No, all of my characters have dealt with people being killed off, except Voice of the Dead. I will tell you, none of the main characters died in that book. But the rest of my books, I have killed off characters. And I will tell you, every time I do it, I cry. It is not an easy process. Whether you're killing off an infant or a middle-aged person or an elderly person, you have birthed those characters as an author. You have conceived and you have carried those characters. and you've nurtured them. So when it's time to say goodbye to one of them, you are going to have an emotional reaction if you are a good author. Even if you're not a good author, you're going to get so caught up with some of your characters that it's going to be very hard to let them go. So keep that in mind. The finer details are always important for character development. You want the reader to see the character in their mind, right down to the lines on their face and the hues in their hair. You want them to be able to close their eyes and see that character right before them. So use good descriptive language to portray each feature. Even down to the way the character walks. You want them to see this character in their head. You are in the business of bringing imaginary people to life. Through you, they live and breathe. So do them justice. Give them a real face. Photos. I have surveyed a lot of my readers and a lot of my audience to find out how they feel about photos of characters. For example, when I'm writing a book, sometimes I'll be browsing the internet and I'll see a stock photo that's like jumps out at me, and I think, oh yeah, that's exactly who they look like. Or even a scene that portrays a similar scene in my book, and I'll be like, oh wow, that's it. And then I'll put them up on my Facebook page. And I've asked people how they feel about that, because I don't want to take away from their vision of what my characters look like. And most of the time, they enjoy those photos, because one person said that they're able to, it's like a window into what the author's mind is, what's going on in the author's mind. So know your audience before you start posting pictures of your alleged characters or whatever, because sometimes your audience may be like, no, I don't want to see them. My particular audience, the majority of them want to see what I'm thinking. If you are an author, or you are working on becoming an author, well-developed characters, that is something that you can use to hook your audience, especially in a series, because readers grow so attached to the people that we create in our books. They want to see what's going to happen next. That is a key feature that you want to keep in mind when you're writing a book or a story. You want to be true to your own vision, but you also want to remember how your audience is going to feel, and the fact that you are writing 9 times out of 10 to entertain others. At least that's how I feel because of the genre that I write in. Positives about my characters. I'm going to give you some examples really quick of some of the characters in my books because that's the one thing that comes up in reviews of my books, is that people get very involved with my characters. So I feel like I can give you good examples because of the reviews that I've gotten. People seem to become very entangled with my characters, and that's exactly what I want them to do. Robin Hillard developed over time. She had a rough time. She had a good upbringing, but she had some pretty terrible things happen to her. And I didn't reveal all of that at the very beginning. I let you into her life little bits at a time. And then by the end of it, you're just so caught up with who she is and how far she's come that you're cheering for her. The same goes with Olivia in The Fine Line, and then she takes an even bigger role in Through Glass Darkly. And I can tell you a lot of my readers are going to be like, what in the world happened to her? If they've read the first book, because she didn't turn out at all like they thought she would. I guarantee you that's the reaction that I'll get. However, she makes it right. I will say that, and that's all I'm going to say about that, because that book hasn't been released yet. Matthew Gregory. He's the suave doctor, and when I shut my eyes to develop him, I could see the person I was developing because of a movie actor. But I added my own personality touches to him. He is not pompous, unlike the actor that I looked at and said, that's what I want him to look like. He is very logical. He is a very concrete person, and that is not revealed at the very beginning. It's only in crisis that you see that come through, and you're like, what in the world? How in the world did these two people manage to get together and them not know anything about each other? So Lauren Harris. Now I will say this. The names that I chose, Robin isn't really significant, and neither is Matt, and neither is Olivia with the names. But the character names in The Voice of the Dead, which is formerly Idolum, those character names meant something to me. Lauren's last name has significance to me, and Nick Bennett's first name has significance to me. And I definitely want to point that out because they are a legacy of a very important young man that is no longer with us. And that is why I chose Harris and Nick. And I've even talked to his mother about this to let her know, hey, this is why I named those characters, was because of that. So she knows this already, and I'm not going to mention any names, just for the sake of privacy, but it is, those two names were significant to me. Now the characters are people all their own. Lauren has a tragic past that has developed her into the person that she is right now. She's a perfectionist. You almost, at the beginning, you almost want to hate her because she is one of those characters that seems to be perfect, have this perfect life and all this money, and she's successful and educated and she's got friends, but there's just something missing that she doesn't even know that's missing, and you can see it immediately when you start reading about her, and you're like, dude, don't you see that? Now Nick, on the other hand, you end up hating him at the beginning because he's such a pompous, and he and Lauren hate each other at the very beginning. He is very, you don't know anything because you're educated, and I've been out in the field for all this time, and what do you know? You're just, you sit behind a desk all the time. There's a conflict between the two characters that you're like, wow, there's like lots of tension there. So you want your audience to feel those things. And the other important thing is you've got these main characters, and then you've got these supporting roles. So you want to have strong friends and strong supporting roles along with your main characters. You get to know each of the characters. The review that keeps coming to my head is the one for formerly Idolum. And the characters, like there was some mention about the characters being, like you felt their pain. When they were going through agony, you felt it. And that's something you want. I mean, I don't want, audiences to be in pain, but I want them to be able to relate so much to my characters that they love them just as much as I do, or hate them just as much as I do. Solid character development, in conclusion, is just a small part of what it takes to write a good story or a good novel. The point is that you have to use a technique that you are comfortable with. Research. I always say research. That doesn't change with character development. Research. By doing your own technique each and every time, you will not disappoint your audience. If you have questions about character development, please send them my way. Otherwise, that's really it for today. The next YouTube episode will be on April 14th, and it will be about plot development. A lot of the things that we've talked about today will play into plot development, because if you have good character development, you can spill that over into good plot development. It all comes together in the end. And what I'm going to use as an example is the current book that I'm working on. I'm going to show you exactly how I've come up with what I've come up with. I'm not going to reveal what the book is in detail, but I'm going to tell you how I developed the plot, where I started and where the end is. Because if you do outlining, I think you're going to do a better job of writing a book than if you say, this is what I want to do. I've never been one to sit down at a computer and just start writing. At the beginning I was, but then I ended up outlining and not even realizing that I was outlining. I will tell you, with the K-Cons of Darkness, I literally did sit down and start typing and think, I don't know where this is going, I just need to get it out. And after about 3 chapters, I was like, okay, this is where I want it to go. You will know what is best for you as far as character development and as far as plot development. You will come into a groove eventually, and you'll be able to stick with that in order to be successful with your books. Again, if you have questions, and I also encourage this for short stories, especially with teenagers that are in lit classes and composition classes. These are some things that you can take away from these YouTube episodes to help you develop in your composition courses, especially with teens and young adults who are going through college. Again, if you have questions, you can always contact me here on YouTube, or you can contact me at tracyford.com. And then also Facebook. I get a lot of messages on Facebook, and it is www.facebook.com/tracy.ford.author. I thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Have a great day. Love and light.